Welcome to the Secure Connections podcast, brought to you by IOTSA, the Internet of Things Security Services Association. I'm Brian Sherman, Content Director and host of this weekly channel discussion with some of the industry's most respected and innovative professionals. My special guest for today's episode is a longtime industry expert and a friend of ours, Amy Luby, Channel Chief Evangelist for Acronis. Today, we'll be discussing the changing cyber threat environment and dive into some of the company's latest channel research. Stay tuned for what I expect to be a fun and rather insightful conversation. Welcome to the Secure Connections podcast, Amy.
Thanks, Brian. I am so happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you on. So let's start with a little personal question here. I like to take a dive back. First off, how are you doing during the current situation with the pandemic?
Overall doing really well. Obviously, very grateful to work for an organization where I already was remote. So that that wasn't a big transition for me. But boy, I miss the road.
So work from home is the new way of life, right? But yeah.
I'm looking forward to maybe our first channel get together, hopefully sometime in 2021. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm aiming for that too. What would you say is one of the biggest events that you miss? I know there's so many out there, but what are some of the memorable ones that you're looking forward to?
Oh, some of my favorite ones, I love going to the ASCII events. Obviously, the IOTSA events have been a lot of fun. Those have been newer in the last couple of years. And so love to doing those. Of course, the bigger ones with the big parties, your Datos and your IT Nation. I'm kind of hoping by the time fall comes around, worst case scenario, maybe we can have a live IT Nation or something. Wouldn't that be fun to have kind of an end of the year, getting back to normal kind of thing? Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, my money, hopefully is on ChannelCon too. If not, some of the events before that. But we're definitely the IOTSA team looking forward to getting back on the road when it's safe to do so. So let's keep our fingers crossed for 2021 that everything moves along quickly. But
I think we're on the right track right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, you and I go back a ways. I won't say how long. I know we've worked together in many different facets over the past X number of years. But for those that aren't as familiar with you, why a career in IT? Where did you get your start in the channel?
I have kind of probably a quirky little story, and I'm not going to go into all the detail, but my original career was in nursing, frankly.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's my degree, actually. I spent a number of years in oncology nursing, specifically in a bone marrow transplant unit. That's what I used to do.
Wow.
But after a number of years, not that many years, I was very, very young, right out of college. So, but after a couple of years, I transitioned home to stay home with my second child. I got involved with a marketing company, and long story short, I built out kind of an IT skill set, database, creating databases, managing databases, and doing it for marketing purposes. And then I built out a networking skill set, certifications, MCSEs, stuff like that, working for third parties, doing these database programs and stuff like that. But anyway, I was doing that on the side. That was like my mom gig while I was raising my kids or having babies. And long story short, my plan was always to launch an IT services company at some point, but it wasn't going to be until my kids were in school. But 9/11 came around. My husband was laid off. We found ourselves, with no money for a strong stretch of time, a good almost 8 months. And while we were both looking for jobs, I finally just kind of threw in the towel. I got stood up for a job interview for some other IT company, and I went down and registered my business, went and joined the chamber, bought all the stuff I needed to do, and went to a chamber meeting, and I won my first client, and that was it. I took off from there. That's literally how I transitioned into IT. And it took me about a year to realize that I did not like the break fix model. And that's when I kind of started searching for, how do I make this work? And literally stumbled into the whole managed services model thing.
It's a good stumble to make. At least
it was a great stumble, a very lucky stumble for me. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I did not know that, but I just always admire that, you were able to do all of that. You have, I won't say how many kids, you have a large family as well. You're juggling a lot of hats back in the day, and I know you still are. So hats off to you for all of those efforts, but that's phenomenal.
Well, out of 7, I have 2 still at home that are like, under 18. 1 in middle school, 1 in high school. So yeah, it's been a long, fun road, but it's my favorite part. It's being a mom, actually.
Well, that's a good inspiration too. I think when you look at some of the challenges of women in the workplace today, and there's no excuses with the things that you've been able to balance over the years too. So that's great.
Well, I will tell you, it is honestly, it's easier to run your own business as a woman than it is to break glass ceilings. So my cohorts who've worked through the corporate environment, that is a special challenge. And I really admire those women that have been able to do it.
I know but hats off, because our industry, I know, is a challenge overall. We go to how many conferences we've been to over the years. I'm seeing a big change over the last, I'd say 5 in particular, with the number of women owning, managing, being leaders of different businesses on the vendor side as well as on the IT services side. So that's great.
We're making progress for sure.
Yeah. What's one of the most memorable things that you've done in your career?
You know what? I was thinking about this, and a couple things stick out, and I'm going to kind of date myself here, but the first thing that comes to mind is MSP Mentor used to have something they called the top global MSPs. Mm-hmm. And that first year that they put that list out, my company was on that list. And I think that's probably, back then it was all forming, right? This whole recurring revenue model was forming, like companies like MSP Mentor were coming out. It was just all new. And, being part of something that's a little bit bigger than you and being acknowledged, if you will, for being a part of that that's one of my best memories, actually.
That's very cool.
Yeah. I got to speak at Worldwide Partner Conference one year, and that was like in front of 7,000 people. That was like the biggest event I have ever done, and haven't seen it that big since. That was just a thrill, right? Like to do something like that and be in that big of a space. I think I remember that event. I was trying to remember earlier today. I can't remember if it was the one that was in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, or if it was the Denver event. I can't remember.
I want to say Denver, but I won't hold us up from that. But I know you've been involved in a lot of the early stages of managed services, cybersecurity. You've kind of had your hands in all of these things, and the education side in particular too. So what's led you, over the years of experience you've had to Acronis today, to your new position?
Well, specifically, our friend Larry Walsh introduced me to Acronis. So that's literally how I got introduced there. Back in the day, I was an Acronis partner. We used True Image, which was one of our original flagship products. But no, Larry was doing some projects with Acronis, and they were thinking about this role. It's a new role. It's different for them. They were kind of trying to form the idea of what it meant and what they were trying to do. And Larry kind of helped them do that. And then made the suggestion, made the connection, say, Amy'd be pretty good at that. So that's how the conversation started.
Well, good. Now the role sounds quite interesting. Channel evangelist, channel chief evangelist. What are your responsibilities in that position?
So yeah, it is interesting, and actually, it's been a lot of fun for me. It's a good fit for my skill set, but certainly new for Acronis. Basically, what Acronis is, they want to change in a meaningful way how they engage the channel, and especially the global channel communities. And that's basically why I'm here. My job, if you will, is to find new and creative ways to engage the channel, to represent Acronis to the channel, and find maybe better or more strategic ways to demonstrate, that we can be or want to be a strategic partner to the channel. So that's what I'm here doing, and it's fun because it's twofold. Like, one, I get to work internally with everybody at Acronis. I mean, we're a global organization in 33 countries, and part of my directive is to help align all the biz orgs, whether it's marketing, sales, product, support, and help them understand who the channel is and why the channel is there, and what their challenges are, and what can we be doing better to support them. So I really enjoy that, that cross collaboration and the teamwork, but then also to demonstrate that value to the channel outwardly, in a meaningful way, and to engage thoughtfully and maybe help the channel start to think about us in a more strategic way, as a strategic partner and support to their business.
I think it helps having that. You've been on the other side of the glass, per se. You've been the customer, the partner side, and then you've worked with many vendors over the year. That perspective I could see, can be beneficial. I've worked within the vendor organizations myself, and it's easy to get in a silo inside a corporate office and not be as in tune with your customers or your partners in the case of many of the companies we work with. So I can see where that would be a definite benefit, having someone of your stature in that position.
Yeah, it's been, my career, when you're kind of going through the day to day, you may not really understand, all the ramifications of the experience that you're gathering. But having been an MSP business owner, having pivoted that business into a vendor to the channel, and then coming over to the dark side, I've worked with distribution, and I've worked with several software security companies, whether they were in startup mode or they were in, growth mode like Acronis is. And I've also had executive roles across the biz orgs. I've been VP of sales, I've been VP of channel, or sales and marketing, or general manager of cloud. So I understand how the biz orgs work. So it's fun to bring it together when you've got the silos, to be part of that agent of change, if you will, to engender that cross collaboration. I enjoy that.
Very cool. Now we're starting to talk about some of the challenges that MSPs face. So, with the pandemic and the subsequent mass transition to work from home environments, we're seeing a huge, maybe not even temporary, but permanent focus on that. The threats that MSPs have to deal with are definitely changing. What are the most significant security concerns right now for businesses with offsite workers?
I think the primary top of mind is this constant, barrage of cyber attacks. I mean, it's just constant anymore, and it's only increasing. And MSPs have been a target for a number of years. We've seen this stuff in the news. There's a breach here, a breach there, whatever. Especially with all the tools that we use. Our remote management tools have made us a prime target, right, for cyber criminals. So, the year of COVID has just magnified that exponentially. The threat surface, if you will, is much larger, right, with everybody working from home, and maybe not as secure, having such a rapid move to home, work from home with consumer devices and things like that. So, these are all the things that have kind of, if COVID did anything, the pandemic just accelerated what we already knew was happening, and forced us to start thinking about it, and putting the proper controls in place to manage our clients and keep them safe.
Yeah, I've seen, many of the MSPs that are friends of mine too, fine tuning, even though many of the things work right now, they're spending a lot of time fine tuning the systems in place, maybe even replacing some of the solutions that they're utilizing. But the security part seems to be the ongoing challenge of how to put the right tools in place that are user friendly, that, I won't say won't get disabled, but layering it on so that they can stop the biggest threats that are going on in the work from home environment.
Well, and I mean, the key point there that you're bringing out is, security just in general can't be really a bolt-on or an afterthought.
Right.
It's got to be, we've discovered that we all, and not just MSPs, but I mean, organizations across the world have got to be security first, security forward thinking, proactive about it. It's not something you think about after the fact. You have to think about it first before you think about any other aspect of the business. So I think that's where MSPs are finding themselves. And that's overwhelming because, 10, 15 years ago, a firewall and an antivirus and an email filter was about all you did. There wasn't a whole lot more in your security tool set. Now we have so many other things that we've got to think about, and we've got to get proactive about it. So I think that's the situation that we're in right now.
Yeah. So I know the attitude, is one thing to change, or the philosophies that MSPs are using on cybersecurity. What practices do they need to adapt to support the new workplace norms?
Well, I kind of just touched on it. You've got to get security forward. You've got to get proactive about security. It's no longer about just one or two simple tools and set it and forget it. You've got to weave cyber protection into the fabric of your service offering. And one of the messages, that I was hired to bring to the forefront with Acronis is, we're super well known for backup, right? That's what we're known as. But over the last 10 years, we've transitioned into a cyber protection company. And the reason that we did that is because backup just isn't good enough anymore. It's a reactive solution. It's what you do when you have no other choice. You've lost your data. You've got to somehow recover it. All of the other aspects, though, of getting proactive about security involve all sorts of layers like what you just talked about. So developing the cyber protection tool suite for our partners to get proactive with security is exactly what we have been doing and what we have today. So when you talk about layering on all that security and what MSPs can be, doing about it, you've got your advanced anti-malware protection, your antivirus, your vuln scanning, your patch management, your remote control, your URL filtering, et cetera, all wrapped up into a single agent, fully integrated, fortifies your security posture in such a way that really helps you get proactive about it. And, frankly, that's what MSPs have always been about, being proactive about managing those networks and those devices. Security knocked us off our proactive stage. And we became very reactive to it. And now, at least with Acronis, and there's others out there, but with Acronis, you've got the opportunity to get proactive again with security. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, the quarantines, I think in some cases, from what we've heard, feedback wise, it's not a good thing. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic, but the business reaction to it has tremendously helped people refine their security practices, where it blew it up. And we were doing this and everybody's in behind the firewall. We had everything controlled. it can be more proactive in that manner. But when they got blown up and work from home environment, you mentioned earlier, personal devices and everything kind of went out the window. And now they're trying to reinvent it. Is how do we support not just the work from home, but maybe the hybrid moving forward? Do you see, what challenges do you think they're going to face that way?
Well, I mean, just our challenges in general going forward. I mean, attacks are only increasing, right? I mean, we've seen that. Everybody's seeing it, and we're feeling it. The other thing that we are seeing happen is, we're moving beyond the ransomware phase, if you will, to data exfiltration. So they're taking the data. They're not just going to hold it ransom. This is a whole bigger business. And we're starting to see that happen. And MSPs are right in the crosshairs, basically because of the nature of the tools that we use. So we've got to get pretty vigilant with that. And I think one of the other significant things is we're seeing a lot more sophisticated automation in these attacks, which only allows for more scale. And that's kind of a scary thought, because I mean, it's at a huge scale right now, and it's just going to continue to scale at a faster pace. So you're right. We've been forced to move. We've been forced to address this. It's no longer an afterthought. Can't be.
Right. Yeah. The comfort zone that many people got accustomed to was many of the MSPs were doing the right things and putting all the right tools in place, but it forced them to rethink, I think, not just some of the philosophies, but the tools they were using and maybe some of the policies that employees, end users had in place as well. So it's definitely been an interesting learning year, I think, for everybody in the industry. So
right.
One of the things I mentioned at the beginning was the research. I wanted to touch on the research that Acronis is doing. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, I mean, we have several, we call them CPOCs. They're Cyber Protection Operations Centers. It's the equivalent of a SOC. And all kinds of really smart people who watch this stuff on a daily basis. So we put this report out basically as what did we see happen in 2020 and what do we think is going to happen going into 2021? So that's what this report is all about. But just at a glance, what we have seen over this last year is that over 31% of global companies are attacked by cyber criminals at least once a day.
Yeah.
So
that caught me off guard. I didn't expect that. That's right.
A third of companies in the world, so 1/3 of them are getting hit at least once a day. Like, that's massive. Anyway, and we know that these attacks are just going to continue to increase. And again, I mentioned automation. So the numbers of malware, if you will, and the automation that's taking place within these sophisticated attacks is just staggering. So we're just going to continue to see that grow and grow in 2021 as well.
Is it the fact that, when you look at stats like this, is it the fact that, MSPs and the vendors that they work with are doing such a great job of stopping the attacks that end users aren't aware of how many threats are out there?
I think we're somewhat aware, but hearing from our larger vendors, if you will, and also from, like our carriers really know what's happening out there because they are the edge, and they're seeing it and they're taking down command and control posts and all that kind of stuff. This whole world of cyber protection, cyber criminals is staggering and fascinating to me. So the more information we can get from our vendors like this, the better, I believe, to really understand the massive activity that's taking place all of the time.
Yeah, that's true. Now, the growth and evolution of ransomware is prominently featured in the report when I read through it too. What do MSPs need to know about the latest strains of the malware? Well,
basically, I'm kind of address this whole thing here. what we're seeing overall, is cybersecurity is failing, right? In general, we are just struggling to keep up. But the failure really is around, weaker technologies, human mistakes, and then just really good social engineering. So some of this we can control, but not a lot of it, right? I mean, we can't control what our end users click on. And social engineering is so sophisticated. I mean, many of us have gotten kind of duped sometimes, but the technology part, I think, is getting better and better. And as more companies really fortify their platforms, build out, become security first organizations, whether they're actually a security company or not, those are going to help fix some of that stuff. But I kind of touched on, as far as malware, I mean, I don't know that you necessarily have to know the individual strain, right? But you have to have a strategy to put controls in place to mitigate risk. That's the most important thing that MSPs or anybody dealing with technology needs to understand is how do I fortify my defenses? How do I get proactive again? How do I build the proper tool set, platforms, whatever, to address this? Backup isn't good enough anymore. It is certainly part of the equation, but it can't be the only part. We've got to address more, and that goes all the way into all those other features, functionality, those layers of protection.
Yeah, I think when I was looking or asking about the strains, it may apply more, I think, to the cybersecurity training too, because some of the techniques, I think, continue to shift. And just when people think they have a handle on those, they're going to shift again as the cyber criminals get smarter and the tactics they're using are using automation. You mentioned earlier as well. I think that's really where some of the challenges are going to be too, is on the training side, how to keep up with it all.
Oh, exactly. Well, and therein lies, kind of the rub, right? I mean, so is it possible to keep track of all the changes? Because I mean, they're happening every minute, every day, right? Is it possible to keep up with those changes? Or, do we stay abreast, right? You got to stay informed, but then do we work to fortify our defenses and make sure we're security first and we're thinking about it all the time, so that when that malware strain does change and it hits my system in some way, that my systems are proactively blocking, isolating, whatever needs to happen, is that automation and integration in place ahead of time in order to mitigate that risk?
No, definitely makes sense. So, Amy, before we run out of time too, I want to stop it. What's the best way for channel partners to engage with Acronis today?
Hey, get in contact with us. I mean, I'm out there. Obviously, we've got our website and our sales teams. But you can always go to our website, acronis.com. You can always hit me up anywhere. So I'm just amy.luby@acronis.com. So those are probably the best ways if you don't know somebody there. Otherwise, contact your sales rep, your account manager.
Very good. What's in store for you in the coming months in your new role?
Just to continue to build out the internal collaboration, and then, bring to the forefront to the channel, who we are, how and why we became about cyber protection on top of cyber backup, and how we can strategically partner together to grow. I think we have a great opportunity to work together with the channel here, and so that's me. That's my 2021, is to get that message out there.
Very good. I know I'm already seeing it on, I think I mentioned to you earlier, on Facebook. You've been doing a lot of activities, I think, on social media too. So good to see, and people should follow you and keep track of what's going on at Acronis.
Yeah, hit us up on our Modern MSP Facebook group. That's where a lot of the dialogue is happening as well.
Very good. Any final thoughts to share with the audience before we sign off today? Our time goes too quick, unfortunately.
I know it does. I know. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say, and here we are. No, I would just challenge everybody to we say at Acronis, stay cyber fit. That's kind of our mantra, right? Riffing off staying healthy. So I would say, I would challenge you. Let's make 2021 rather than the year of extortion, is what we were saying in our report. Let's make it the year of cyber fitness, and maybe we can get together and grow our businesses together.
Love it. Sounds great. So on behalf of the IOTA team, I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to Amy Luby from Acronis for joining me today. Hats off to her too for her new position. Stay tuned for the next Secure Connections podcast and have a safe and secure day. Thank you again for joining us.